A ceasefire between Israel and Hamas is holding for a second day. Gaza was bombarded by Israel for 8 days. More than 160 people were killed in that time. Casey Kaufman met the family of one of the victims, a boy who was killed after the ceasefire was announced.
Israeli police announced the arrest a day after the ceasefire. They say the suspect is associated with Hamas and another militant group, Islamic Jihad. Investigators say the organizations gave him instructions and he used a mobile phone to detonate the bomb. Police suspect the men may have targeted the bus in retaliation for Israel's attacks on Gaza. They're investigating the possible involvement of Hamas officials.
We want to get to the very latest information that we can give you right now about the investigation into who bombed a bus in Tel Aviv. The bus exploded, injuring about 24 people. We now know that there has been an arrest. That arrest was made several hours after that bombing, which was yesterday. We know that the bomb was detonated by a cell phone, and we also know from police they're saying the person that was arrested was someone who was aligned with Hamas. So that is new information coming into us. We also want to talk about the ceasefire. That bus bombing happened just as talk of the ceasefire was getting very, very close, and we were expecting an announcement. It did not derail the ceasefire, but now we're learning that the person responsible for it may well be a member of Hamas, or at least aligned with Hamas or Islamic Jihad. We want to tell you, though, about the 24-hour ceasefire. That period has lasted, and so right now the ceasefire is still in place. People relieved that no more rockets or airstrikes are happening.
The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas held firm on Thursday, although both sides have vowed to retaliate if they're attacked. Israeli reservists who had been called up in their thousands began leaving the border, where increasing numbers had been sent in anticipation of a possible land offensive into Gaza. An Israeli soldier died from his wounds on Thursday, bringing to 6 the number of Israelis killed in the recent violence. The government still has to convince many people who are sceptical about the truce. Like the military, the Prime Minister claims its bombardment of Gaza was successful. We're prepared to act if the peace is violated, he said. I know some were expecting a harsher response. We're prepared for that too. Meanwhile, the Israeli Security Service says it's arrested suspects after Wednesday's Tel Aviv bus bombing. In Gaza, Hamas leader Ismail Haniyeh met the family of the military chief whose assassination by Israeli forces marked the start of the week-long outbreak of violence. As Gaza celebrated a public holiday to mark the truce, the armed wing of the territory's Hamas rulers declared victory.
Well, here in Israel, people have been that much more sceptical about this ceasefire, but it does seem to have stuck. The crucial time actually is about to start, because Israel and Hamas have not completed their indirect negotiations. In fact, they've only just really started after this trust period with the ceasefire in place. Now what Hamas wants to see is the reopening or the easing of movements of crossings in Gaza, so that people and goods can move around more easily. What Israel wants to see is the smuggling tunnels under the border between Egypt and Gaza really tackled, because it wants to make sure that militants cannot restock their weapons from Iran or other places being sent through through these underground passages.
After 8 days of war, Palestinians in Gaza celebrate what they consider to be a victory over Israel. Life is quickly coming back to normal in this bustling city. Shops are reopening, Hamas police are back on duty, and locals are pouring onto the streets while the ceasefire holds.
I'm happy about victory.
Why?
Because the Jews wanted to occupy us, they wanted to strike us, and we still want to slaughter them.
This is a great period for us. It's a time of victory over our enemy and the enemy of God. This is one of the greatest joys that the Muslims have had.
In the north, thousands fled their homes after the Israeli army threatened to invade. They have now returned, but some, like this mother of 7, have not yet had time to unpack the belongings they frantically grabbed on their way out.